I stared blankly at the banking notification pop up on my phone screen, my thumb hovering frozen over the refresh button for a full 10 seconds. The number burned into my retinas, crisp and unmistakable, $1, 800.1800 bucks. That was every cent deposited into my account as project commission for an $8 million commercial residential renovation contract I'd single-handedly closed 6 weeks prior. The written contract signed by both the company and client guaranteed I'd receive a flat $180,000 commission upon full project handover. The math wasn't hard to do. My employer had slashed 99% of what I'd legally earned. I pushed my office chair back without a word and headed straight for the CEO's corner suite, the crumpled physical contract tucked tight in my blazer pocket. I didn't yell, didn't storm. I kept my pace steady, every muscle locked down tight, the way I'd trained myself over 8 years working under Zhang Tao. I'd long learned throwing tantrums only handed him ammo to label me ungrateful and unprofessional. When I pushed open his office door, he didn't even glance up from his golf magazine, one boot propped up on the edge of his oak desk. Spit it out, Lin Wei. I saw you loitering outside my door 5 minutes ago. His tone was lazy, dismissive, like I was in turn begging for a raise rather than a senior lead designer owed 6 figures. I slid the bank statement across his desk, my voice flat, no trace of anger bleeding through. The commission payment came through this morning. The contract we signed with the client, Clause 7, states my cut is $180,000 and I only received $1,800. Zhang Tao finally lifted his gaze, his eyes narrowing sharp with contempt. He snatched the pay slip I'd printed out and tossed it hard against my chest, the paper cutting lightly across my jaw. The sound of the paper fluttering to the floor echoed loud in the silent office. You really think you deserve that kind of money? He slammed his palm against the desktop hard enough to rattle his coffee mug, the chair scraping backward with a shrill, grating whine. The front desk girl pulls 12-hour shifts 5 days a week and takes home $2,400 a month. The building cleaner barely scrapes $2,000. Everybody else here is grateful just to have a steady paycheck, but you act like the company owes you a fortune. I landed the $8 million project entirely on my own. I replied evenly, my fingers brushing the contract tucked in my pocket, my self-control fraying at the edges. The client reached out to me directly after seeing my portfolio online before I even brought the deal to this firm. Every design draft, every client meeting, every budget breakdown was all my work. The contract is legally binding. That money is mine. He barked a bitter, mocking laugh, leaning forward to glare down at me from over his steepled fingers. None of that would have happened without this company's platform. You think some random high-end property developer would have taken your calls if you weren't listed as our lead designer? You're nothing without the brand I built here. Your fancy renderings mean jack squat without the name on the business card. He jabbed a finger straight at my face, his voice rising sharp enough to draw stares from staff walking past the glass partition. This conversation's over. Stop fixating on trivial cash. If you keep badgering me about commissions, I'll dock that $1,800 too and leave you with zero. Learn some gratitude, kid. I stood there for a beat, watching his flushed, furious face, weighing every possible move. If I snapped, screamed, or threatened legal action right now, he'd immediately flag me as a hostile employee, manufacture disciplinary write-ups, and find a loophole to fire me before I could gather full evidence to fight for my stolen pay. Every detail I'd spent 8 years documenting, client correspondences, signed project agreements, hours of overtime logs, recorded verbal promises from Zhang Tao, would be wasted if I rushed the fight prematurely. I nodded once, slow and deliberate, feigning surrender. You're right, Mr. Zhang, but I'll stop bringing it up. I appreciate you taking the time to explain your perspective. A smug, triumphant grin spread across his face instantly. He leaned back into his leather office chair, gesturing dismissively toward the door. That's the mindset you need. Stop chasing short-term cash grabs. Stick with the company, and opportunities will fall into your lap eventually. I turned to exit, my back to him hiding the cold resolve hardening in my chest. As I stepped over the threshold, I pulled my phone out of my blazer pocket, activating the camera and snapping a clear photo of the bank deposit alert, the timestamp fully visible. A quiet promise settled in my head. From this moment forward, I would not perform a single task outside the bare minimum scope of a minimum wage administrative role. Every extra hour, every custom rendering, every last-minute client emergency I'd volunteered for over the years was officially off the table. If he only valued my labor at $1,800 a month, that was exactly the level of service he'd get. Back at my open concept workstation, the toxic whispers hit me before I even sat down. Zhao Kai, the mid-level design supervisor who'd spent years copying my design concepts and stealing small client referrals behind my back, tapped aggressively at his keyboard while speaking loud enough for the entire design team to hear. Some people really think they're irreplaceable geniuses. Huh? Act like the industry would collapse without them, then throw a fit over commission that's now a measly $1,800. Barely beats entry-level intern pay. 2 junior designers seated beside him snickered in agreement, their eyes darting sideways to me with undisguised schadenfreude. All that ego for nothing to M.R. Jean cut her commission for a reason. She's far too entitled for her own good. He's doing her a favor knocking her down a peg. Shush, don't talk too loud. She might retaliate and sabotage our project files later. In previous years, I would have pulled out the stack of handwritten client thank you notes, framed customer commendations, and 3 custom silk banners the $8 million project's investors had gifted me to shut their mockery down cold. Today, I said nothing, that I folded my client documents neatly, slid them into my locked desk drawer, and muted every team group chat on my laptop without a single comment. The wall clock mounted above the copy room ticked over to exactly 5:01 p.m., 1 minute past the official company closing time of 5 o'clock sharp. For 8 straight years, I'd routinely pull all-nighters for refining renderings, sleep on the office couch during multi-day project crunches, and skip weekend family plans to adjust client layouts at Zhang Tao's last-minute demands. I'd once believed hard work would always be fairly compensated. That naive mindset died the second I saw that $1,800 deposit. I closed my half-finished 3D villa rendering file without saving a single extra edit, grabbed my tote bag off the back of my chair, and stood to leave. My junior assistant Chen Shue's eyes blew wide with panic. She scrambled over to my station, leaning in to whisper urgently, her voice trembling. Wei Jie, you can't leave right now, M'ar. Zhang sent a company-wide message 10 minutes ago. We all have to stay overtime tonight to overhaul the UFU Villa project proposal. The client's flying in tomorrow morning for a full presentation, and all the custom layout drafts need revisions by 8 a.m. I glanced at the clock again, then gestured toward the front lobby where the cleaning staff clocked out promptly at 5 every single day. Company policy states our official shift ends at 5 p.m. It's legally my personal time now. You guys can handle the revisions without me. Chen Shui stared at me in stunned silence as I grabbed my staff ID badge and walked toward the biometric time clock by the elevator bank. I scanned my wrist to punch out, the machine beeping a confirmation chime, and heard heavy footsteps storming down the hallway behind me. Zhang Tao rounded the corner, his face dark as storm clouds, jaw clenched tight. Lin Wei, where the hell do you think you're going? The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding right beside me. I twisted to face him, my expression blank, no hint of defiance or malice showing on my face. Off the clock, Mr. Zhang, I'm heading home. Home? His voice shot up an octave, echoing off the marble hallway walls. The UFU Villa proposal is incomplete, and you're the lead designer assigned to this account. You cannot walk out mid-crunch the night before a critical client pitch. I held my finger down on the elevator door hold button, maintaining calm eye contact with him. Earlier today, you told me I need to stop seeing myself as special and compare my workload to the front desk clerk and building cleaner. I've taken your advice to heart. The front desk staff never stays late drafting 3D renderings, and the cleaner doesn't edit custom villa layouts. Since my monthly pay's been adjusted to match their income bracket, I'll stick to their standard work schedule. From now on, high-end villa design revisions are outside my current pay grade. I lifted my finger off the button, letting the metal doors slide closed between us. His furious roar bounced through the narrowing gap as the elevator descended toward the ground floor. Lin Wei, you've crossed a line. If that proposal isn't fully revised by tomorrow morning, you'll pack your desk and be fired on the spot. I leaned against the elevator wall, staring at my reflection in the polished metal surface. Fire me? That was exactly what he wanted, an excuse to terminate my employment permanently so he could keep the full $180,000 in commission entirely for himself. But he'd overlooked one critical detail built into my daily workflow as a senior designer. I documented everything. Every verbal order, every contract clause, every unfair policy shift, every threat he tossed my way. If we entered formal legal proceedings, he would not win this fight easily. I'd spent years preparing for a day just like this, even if I'd never hoped it would actually arrive. The elevator hit the lobby floor, and I stepped outside into the evening street, pulling out my phone to create a separate, encrypted cloud folder. I uploaded the bank slip photo, the full signed project contract, and the audio recording I'd captured during our office confrontation that afternoon, labeling the file case evidence, unpaid commission, and verbal harassment. The first phase of my plan was officially underway, and I wouldn't rush a single step. I stepped through the building's front doors at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, scanning my wrist against the time clock precisely on schedule. No earlier, no later. Zhang Tao was leaning against the reception desk, arms crossed tight over his chest, his glare zeroing in on me the second I walked through the glass entrance. A handful of administrative staff lingered nearby, pretending to sort paperwork while eavesdropping on our exchange. Wow, look who decided to grace the office on time today. Big shot designer can't even bother arriving 5 minutes early to prep for the $1 million client pitch. His tone dripped with sarcasm, loud enough for every person in the lobby to hear. I tilted my head slightly, offering a neutral, calm response without any bite in my voice. Following the company's official attendance rules is every employee's basic responsibility. Showing up ahead of schedule wastes the firm's electricity and building maintenance fees, resources I'm sure you'd rather conserve, given the recent adjustments to staff compensation. Several of the nearby clerks bit their lips hard to hold back laughter, their shoulders shaking silently. Zhang Tao's cheek muscles twitched in visible irritation, unable to fire back at my compliance with his own cost-cutting rhetoric. He pushed off the reception counter and held out his hand, fingers curled impatiently, the revised UFU Villa design proposal. Client arrives at 10 a.m. sharp for the presentation, and we need full layout drafts, material cost breakdowns, and finalized 3D renderings ready to present. The UFU Villa project carried a total client construction budget of $120,000, the firm's highest priority active account that quarter. Back when I was still receiving full commission pay, I would have pulled 2 consecutive all-nighters to polish every single detail of the proposal, reworking renderings 6 separate times to match the couple's conflicting aesthetic preferences. Today, I'd spent exactly 20 minutes drafting a bare-bones PowerPoint deck before logging off my workstation the previous night. I emailed the finished proposal to your corporate inbox last night, Mr. Zhang. He narrowed his eyes, clearly suspicious, and stormed back to his private office. Less than 3 minutes passed before a loud crash echoed down the hallway, followed by his unhinged screaming that carried through the glass office walls. "Lynn W., get in here right now." I walked toward his office at a leisurely pace, pausing briefly to refill my water bottle at the break room fountain to drag out every spare second. When I pushed open his door, he slammed his fist against the monitor screen, his face bright red with unbridled rage, pointing violently at the PowerPoint pulled up on his desktop. "This garbage is what you call a revised client proposal. It's 5 slides of meaningless buzzwords with 0 substance." I glanced at the screen, scanning the sparse slides I'd put together. The title slide read, UFU Villa Spatial Aesthetic Design Vision, followed by 4 pages filled with generic marketing copy about premium living, natural integration, and family-centric design principles. There was not a single floor plan, material price list, or a rendered image anywhere in the file. I shrugged my shoulders, maintaining a completely innocent demeanor. The presentation hits every core thematic talking point wealthy villa buyers care about. The language is polished and upscale, matching the client's brand expectations perfectly. Polished words don't pay our bills. He hurled his computer mouse across the desk, it skittering to a stop at my feet. Where are the spatial layouts? The 3-dimensional renderings? The line item construction budget breakdown? You're going to make me look incompetent in front of a high-value client. I spread my hands out wide, echoing the exact talking points he'd drilled into my head the day prior. With an $1,800 monthly salary, you can't reasonably expect fully customized, detail-heavy design deliverables. You emphasized repeatedly yesterday that the company's brand platform carries all the weight, so the firm's reputation should be more than enough to impress the client without my specialized design work. You also told me to model my workload after the cleaner, who never creates architectural drafts for clients. Zhang Tao clutched his chest, gasping like he couldn't draw enough oxygen, his fingers stabbing repeatedly in my direction. This is blatant work avoidance, deliberate neglect of your core job duties. I have every right to terminate your employment immediately for severe workplace misconduct. I didn't flinch, stepping forward to straighten the water glass he'd knocked over in his fury, wiping out the spilled liquid with a tissue from his desk drawer. Neglect only applies if I refuse to submit assigned deliverables. I turned in the full proposal as requested, and I've complied with all attendance policies without tardiness or unapproved absences. The quality of the presentation falls under subjective performance evaluation, not a formal disciplinary violation. I paused, calculating the legal damages allowed, so every word sank in clearly, my tone calm and factual rather than threatening. If you fire me without documented proof of consistent unsatisfactory performance verified by client feedback or costly design errors, that qualifies as unlawful termination of an employment contract. I've worked at this firm for 8 years, with a 2-year average combined income of $24,000 monthly when factoring base pay and commissions. Statutory wrongful termination compensation would total $384,000 in double severance pay. A faint flicker of panic crossed his face, but he quickly masked it with more anger. I pressed on, laying out the critical leverage I held without raising my voice. On top of that, no other team member on staff understands this client's unique household requirements. The property owners have aging parents requiring fully accessible walkways, small children needing rounded safety edges on every fixture, a wife who favors minimalist decor, and a husband who wants integrated traditional Chinese woodwork accents. None of the junior designers or Zhao Kai have sat through the 3-hour consultation where all those specifications were laid out. You've got 30 minutes until the client arrives, and no one else can tailor the presentation to their exact preferences. Zhang Tao inhaled deeply, forcing himself to calm down, his eyes hardening with malicious plotting. Fine, you're leading the 10 a.m. presentation in the conference room. If you tank this pitch and cost the company the $120,000 contract, you'll be held financially liable for all resulting business losses, and you'll be terminated effective immediately. I nodded without hesitation, hiding the cold strategy simmering beneath my neutral expression. Tanking the client meeting would absolutely give him grounds to claim severe financial damages, but I'd built a countermeasure for that exact scenario long before I drafted the empty PowerPoint deck. Every move I made was pre-planned, every potential outcome accounted for. Understood, I'll head to the conference room to set up the projector now. I turned and exited his office, my mind running through every step of the upcoming client meeting, mapping out exactly how the conversation would unfold, and how every word exchanged would serve as additional evidence for my eventual legal case. The second phase of my plan was set into motion, and the worst of the conflict was only minutes away from igniting. 10 o'clock struck the office wall clock, and the glass conference room door slid open to admit the villa clients, Mr. and Mrs. Chun, alongside their personal design consultant. They carried polished leather portfolios, their posture rigid and business-focused, already expecting a comprehensive, detailed presentation of their upcoming home renovation. Zhang Tao sat at the head of the conference table, plastering a fake, overly friendly smile across his face, shooting constant panicked side-eye glances at me, silently begging me to deliver a professional pitch to salvage the deal. I returned a placid, reassuring nod, clicked open the sparse 5-slide PowerPoint on the projector, and addressed the couple evenly. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. I'm Lin Wei, lead designer assigned to your villa project. All core design concepts for your property are outlined within these slides. Please take 5 minutes to review the content on screen at your leisure. With that single line, I pulled out my phone, propped it upright on the table with a portable stand, and opened a design reference forum to scroll through industry inspiration photos, ignoring the awkward silence descending over the entire conference room. The 5 minutes dragged by in complete, suffocating quiet, Mrs. Chen was the first to snap, slamming her metal pen down hard against the notebook in front of her, the sharp clatter echoing through the room. Mr. Zhang, is this seriously the full extent of your firm's design proposal? Where are the scaled floor layouts, the photorealistic renderings we requested, and the itemized construction budget breakdown we explicitly asked to review today? Cold sweat flooded Zhang Tao's forehead instantly. He shot out of his chair in a flustered rush, waving his hands to dismiss the client's frustration as a simple mix-up. This is a terrible misunderstanding. Lin Wei must have pulled the wrong draft file for today's meeting. Lin, explain yourself to the clients at once. I lifted my gaze from my phone screen, tilting my head in feigned confusion, repeating every word Zhang Tao had hammered into me 2 days prior for the couple to hear crystal clear. There's no wrong file, sir. You told me my adjusted monthly pay only matches the front desk and cleaning staff's wages, so I shouldn't waste time on high-level custom design deliverables. You also insisted the company's brand platform alone is enough to secure client partnerships without specialized design work for me. I simply followed your explicit guidance to avoid overextending myself beyond my current pay bracket. Zhang Tao's face turned a deep, furious purple, his vocal cords locking up mid-sentence as he struggled to form a coherent rebuttal, MR. Chan let out a sharp, disappointed scoff, closing his leather portfolio and straightening his tailored suit jacket, his tone cold and final. It's clear your internal management is completely broken if your lead designer openly refuses to fulfill contracted project requirements mid-presentation. A firm that can't coordinate its own staff has no business handling a high-end residential renovation of our scale. We're terminating all preliminary partnership discussions effective immediately. We'll find a competing design studio to take on this project instead. The couple and their consultant exited the conference room without another backward glance, the heavy glass door clicking shut behind them. The second the sound faded, Zhang Tao's fragile composure shattered entirely. He spun toward me, his eyes wild with unhinged rage, every word dripping with venomous malice. Lin Wei, you've just signed your own career death warrant. He grabbed the thick stack of printed design drafts sitting on the conference table and hurled the full bundle straight at my face. The sharp paper edge sliced a clean gash across my forehead, warm blood immediately trickling down my temple to drip onto the collar of my blouse. $120,000 in lost revenue. All because of your petty, childish vendetta? I'd get more loyalty out of a stray dog than I've gotten from you these past 8 years. He surged forward before I could stand from my chair, snatching a fistful of my hair and slamming my upper torso hard against the polished conference tabletop. I instinctively curled my arms around my head and chest to shield my vital organs, not offering a single movement of resistance, knowing every second of his unprovoked physical assault was being captured in full high-definition video on my phone propped upright on the table, still recording continuously without pause. Want to hide behind labor laws and commission contracts? I'll beat that attitude right out of you. He drove his boot hard into the back of my knee, sending me crashing to the carpeted floor, then delivered 2 more brutal kicks to my ribs as I curled into a protective ball. I've got enough money to pay off any minor assault fines. I'll make sure every design firm in the city blacklists you permanently. You'll never land another industry job for the rest of your life. Staff crowded outside the floor-to-ceiling glass conference wall, screaming in shock, yet none dared step through the door to intervene. Zhao Kai stood front and center of the onlookers, a faint, satisfied smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, openly relishing my suffering. Zhang Tao continued his violent attack for nearly 2 full minutes before physical exhaustion forced him to step back, wiping sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his tailored dress shirt, staring down at my blood-streaked face with vicious satisfaction. Enjoy that pain. This is what happens when you dare to oppose me. He gestured toward the hallway outside the conference room, his voice still booming with unbridled anger. HR will reassign you to the back storage room, sorting old blueprint archives starting tomorrow. I'll personally audit every stock you file, make 1 single organizational error, and you'll face another beating just like this one. He stormed out of the conference room, slamming the door so hard the metal frame rattled against the wall. Chun Shui, my junior assistant, sprinted into the room seconds after he left, tears streaming down her cheeks as she knelt beside my crumpled form, reaching out to steady my shoulders. We need to call an ambulance right away, Wei Jia. Your forehead won't stop bleeding, and you're barely able to sit up. I gently pushed her hands away, reaching for my phone on the table stand first. The video recording had saved fully, capturing every blow, every threatening insult, every second of his unprovoked physical abuse with unobscured audio and visuals. I pulled up my social media creator account, uploading the full unedited footage with minor blurring to protect my own facial features, attaching scanned copies of the $8 million project contract, the bank deposit slip showing the slashed commission, and close-up photos of my fresh facial laceration and bruising forming along my ribs and knees. I typed out a concise caption laying out the full sequence of events, then hit the post button without hesitation. Within 10 minutes, the notification counter on my account hit 99 plus nonstop alerts, shares, and comments flooding in by the thousands. The viral post ignited 3 separate trending hashtags across the platform. Hashtag abusive assaults designer. Hashtag 180K commission slash to 1800. Hashtag workplace violence and wage theft. The first major public blow against Zhang Tao and his company was officially live for the entire industry to witness. I barely had time to process the flood of supportive public comments before the conference room door flew open once more. Zhang Tao had circled back from the elevator bank, spotted me scrolling my phone through the glass wall, and returned in a fresh wave of unhinged fury. He marched straight over to my position on the floor, jabbing a finger an inch from my bloodied face. You're still wasting company time on your phone. You've officially sealed your fate. I lifted my phone camera to face him directly, holding the screen steady to continue recording his outburst. He let out a bitter, mocking laugh at the sight of the active camera lens, unconcerned with being captured on video again. Film all you want. I've got connections at the local police precinct. They'll lock you up for filing false harassment reports before the day ends. Our tech team can take down that viral post in under 5 minutes, erasing every shred of your little sob story online. Zhao Kai darted into the room behind him, rushing forward to hand Zhang Tao a pack of paper napkins, his tone sycophantic and eager to curry favor. Don't waste your energy on her, Mr. Zhang. I'll call building security to drag her off the premises immediately. I leaned back against the conference room wall, my ribs throbbing with every shallow breath, a cold, sharp smirk tugging at my lips. No need to waste security's time. I already dialed the non-emergency police line and filed a formal assault report 5 minutes ago. Officers are en route to the building right now. Before Zhang Tao could fire back a retort, a small group of uniformed police officers rounded the lobby corner, stepping through the conference room door. The lead officer's gaze landed on my blood-streaked face and bruised limbs, his jaw tightening with immediate disapproval. Who placed the assault call? Who was involved in the physical altercation reported here? Zhang Tao hurried forward to block the officer's path, pulling a cigarette from his suit pocket and attempting to hand it over as a gesture of familiarity. This is all a private workplace dispute between me and a difficult employee, just a minor verbal argument that escalated, no need for official police intervention. I'm the company's CEO and a major local taxpayer. We can resolve this internally without formal filings. The lead officer refused to accept the cigarette, gesturing toward my injuries without shifting his stern gaze. A verbal argument doesn't leave lacerations and bruising across a person's face and torso. Pull out your government IDs, both of you, and come with us to the station to give official statements. Zhang Tao's confident facade crumbled instantly. He pointed a shaking finger toward me, attempting to shift all blame onto my shoulders. Officer, she intentionally sabotaged a $120,000 client contract and leaked confidential internal design material to outside competitors. I only reacted out of frustration over catastrophic company losses. This is her fault entirely. My business pays huge tax revenue to this district. You can't detain me over a minor disciplinary incident. I raised my phone high for the officers to clearly view the unbroken video footage stored on the device, my voice steady despite the sharp pain radiating from my bruised ribs. Every blow, every threatening remark he made is recorded in full video. I never threw a single punch or made any physical movement toward him at any point. This was one-sided assault, compounded with threats to blacklist me industry-wide and retaliate further against my person. The lead officer watched a 30-second clip of the recording, his expression hardening completely once he witnessed the unprovoked physical violence captured on camera. He gestured to the 2 uniformed officers beside him to move forward and place Zhang Tao in temporary custody, place him under arrest for misdemeanor assault. We'll process formal charges at the precinct immediately. Zhang Tao began thrashing against the officer's grip as they secured his wrists, screaming vicious threats that echoed through the entire office floor. I've retained top-tier legal counsel. I'll reach out to my police contacts to get this dropped within hours. Lin Wei, you'll regret crossing me for the rest of your life. I'll ruin everything you've built. They escorted him out of the conference room toward the elevator, his furious shouts fading as the metal doors slid closed. Zhao Kai and the other junior designers who'd mocked me earlier stood frozen against the wall, their faces drained of all color, terrified of the repercussions they'd soon face for their complicit mockery. Chen Shui wrapped an arm around my waist to help me stand upright, guiding me slowly toward the building's front doors where an ambulance crew had already pulled up to the curb. I glanced back at the firm's branded entrance sign one last time, my mind sharp and focused. This violent incident was merely the opening act of my fight for justice. Zhang Tao would pay full compensation for every harm he'd inflicted on me, financially, professionally, and legally.